Hi everyone, I'm Heath Hightower, co-host of Process Recordings. Before we get started with today's show, I want to just give you a quick reminder. While Lisa and I hope you find our show useful, we also want you to know that it's not a substitute for therapy. If you do need a therapist, however, we do recommend that you check out the psychologytoday.com website. Also, if you need immediate support, contact 988, which is the 3-digit number to contact the National Crisis Hotline and Suicide number. Thanks for listening and watching, and enjoy the show. Hi everyone, I'm Heath Hightower.
And I'm Lisa Wessan.
And this is Process Recording, the show where we have real talk about real human experiences and where we offer real solutions about some of life's most common problems. Welcome to the show, Lisa. It's really good to see you today. So what's on tap today? What are we doing?
Well, I'm excited. As always, our topics are interesting, thrilling, and very helpful. We're going to be tactical and practical today because we have a lot of information about procrastination.
So that's what we're talking about today. I don't want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk?
No, I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to put it off, actually. No, I'm teasing.
Let's put it off.
Yeah, let's procrastinate.
Peter, we're coming back in 2 weeks.
That's right. We're going to procrastinate our talk about procrastination.
Yeah, we talked about in our lovely pre-show meeting. I love how it's not one size fits all.
Right.
There's no solution for everybody.
Yeah.
We have many, many paths up this mountain. There are 10,000 paths up this mountain.
Yeah.
And the good news is there is a solution, and you can learn to do hard things, and you can learn to overcome this procrastination by building habits, changing your cognitive distortions from I am impossible to I am possible. A lot of things we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And techniques. Part one is always a literature review, and there's freedom in our framework. Heath has a fantastic overview ready to go out of the can. I have lots of things to add afterwards. Okay, go ahead.
Fantastic. So let's start with just a grounding definition for what we're talking about today so that we're all on the same page. So procrastination is the intentional delay or postponement of a decision or an action or a task, even if we know that there might be negative consequences for not doing those tasks or actions. So I think that's an important place to just kind of be aware of. And I also think it's kind of interesting to think about the degrees to which procrastination may be both intentional, but maybe also operating unconsciously as well. So I think that's really interesting. And I guess the one question I had as I was driving here today that I just wanted to pose to you is, from your perspective and from your experience, is procrastination often a problem, or is it more a symptom of another problem based on your experience?
I think that's a very good question. And I do think that it's multidimensional. It's not just someone's lazy or they put things off because it's their personality. And I think it's tied up with self-esteem. It's tied up with worthiness. And it's tied up with also pros and cons, like being very clear, like what are the consequences if it doesn't get done? Yeah. You know, I know like when I'm working on recently I had a challenge with my taxes and grief. It was pointed out to me. I took a workshop on grief recently, and I just heard something that I either didn't remember or I never knew, that when you're going through a lot of emotional grief, you actually have trouble concentrating and you have trouble getting things done. Like it affects your cognitive. And I swear I didn't think that was, I thought I'm fine. I'm powering through this. And I realized certain tasks, like anything, mastering the mundane during grief is very difficult. So it gave me permission to have compassion for myself. Like I never file my taxes late, but this year I just barely made it by October 15th. And I realized it's, the anniversary of my sister's death is actually next week, my husband's incapacitation, all these things, like just, oh my God. And that's why it was hard to do taxes this year. Duh. So those of you who are going through some kind of emotional chaos, what do you do? And we're going to talk about this in part two more. First step for me is some self-compassion. You cannot beat yourself up. So anyway, we'll talk about all this, but it's very complicated. You know, any kind of emotional turmoil can cause procrastination, but it's not really causing it. It's like, it's intrinsic. You have to, you're blurred, you know?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I was also thinking about as I was thinking about this topic was really the degree to which culture plays a really big role in this whole idea of procrastination. And one of the reasons why I say culture is that when you live in a capitalistic culture that really subscribes to the Protestant work ethic,
high achieving,
where your worth is very much tied to your productivity, like how much you are producing.
Yes.
And so I do struggle myself, I will say, not with procrastination, but whether or not procrastination is always a problem. Because I think sometimes in our conversations, procrastination is framed as a problem that always has to be solved, that there is something kind of wrong if you are, intentionally putting things off that you need to get done. So I'm struggling with that as I'm thinking more and more about this topic.
That's a philosophical question about the culture of doing versus being and balancing. Yeah. We are human beings, not human doings.
Right.
And we get caught up in our productivity, especially in culture centers like the East Coast, the West Coast.
Right.
So less is more, and being mindful. And who's to say, your to-do list is too much? That's why you have calendar clutter. Reduce it. Nobody, people who are high achievers don't want to hear that. They want to keep going.
Right.
And that's a challenge for us as therapists to gentle say, look, your to-do list it's like overwhelming. You got to give up something.
Yeah. Well, I also think that one of the other ways that I feel like procrastination is important to talk about in the context of culture is that different cultures have different relationships with time, right? So again, we in our kind of American dominant culture really think about time as it relates to how much do we make per hour, right? Like that whole idea that we've assigned a monetary value to the amount that our time is worth, right? That to me is really interesting. I also think that in other cultures where their relationship with time is much longer, so people who feel like they measure units of time in terms of the generations that their family has occupied a particular place or space. And also, I think that there are also cultures that really value leisure time, which is not productive by definition. So when people go on vacation for a month in Europe, are they procrastinating? Are they lazy? No. So I just think that as we're getting ready to have this conversation about procrastination, specifically the times when it is a problem, it's also, I think, important for us to acknowledge that maybe sometimes procrastination may not be a problem. And that very much is shaped by the culture that we're embedded in and our relationship with time.
Right. Yeah. I can see, that's to be able to, well, it's about values. And I have to say, when I lived overseas, a couple of times I was in Morocco, I was in Israel, I was in England, and I couldn't get over how they take 2-hour lunches there. Yeah. Normal, 2 to 3 sometimes. Yeah. And in Israel, it's called the hafsakah. Yeah. They finish, and when I was a student there for a while, they take a 2 or 3 hour break, and then sometimes they take a nap even, but they come back, and everyone's having a leisurely lunch. Yeah. Slow. Maybe a nap, and they come back and they work from 2 until 7 or whatever. But the point is they have this long break. And in our country, people are taking the half-hour lunch or no lunch. It's insane. But let's focus on procrastination.
Sure, of course.
I think the procrastination has to do with when we do have a deadline or we're trying to get something done and we don't do it. So the pain of saying, I should be doing this, and the should is very painful. I should be, now I was joking with you before we started. I don't know who said this, but somebody made up this term about the IPO, infinite procrastination opportunities. So what are the IPOs? Twitter, Instagram, Netflix, just diddling around, games, video games. So first things first is that how much time are people spending on these IPOs, infinite procrastination opportunities?
Sure.
They say, I have no time to do this, whatever. But then we find out 2 hours of Instagram, or 2 hours of Facebook.
Yeah.
And that right off the top, people have to start looking at how you get a certain amount of time. It's like energy units a day, and how are you spending it? And I'm not judging.
Sure.
But when people complain, I don't have time to go to the gym, I don't have time to make a salad. Yeah. But then I find out, oh yes, you do. So what do you think about like helping them just gently with compassion reduce the IPOs?
Yeah. So I think part of what you're talking about, which makes a lot of sense to me, is if we think about what are some of the common causes of procrastination. So one is certainly having an environment that is filled with lots of distractions that really get our limbic systems going, that really give us that hit of dopamine, if you will. So that certainly is one of the perils of modern life, right? That we have a lot more access to things that can distract us from the tasks that we either want to do or have to do because they're connected to our job. So I think that's certainly true. What are some other causes of procrastination?
Okay. We'll do the causes and then we'll do the tips later, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so part 2 or 3. Causes of procrastination. I think that it's, for some people, I'm thinking about the fear of success even.
Yeah.
They have a weird fear of success. Not judging it, but not being able to embrace being a successful person. That's an identity and a value conflict.
Right.
So we have to work on the identity, and why don't they feel worthy of getting, if they're students studying for their tests, getting an A, if someone's trying to get to the gym and lift some weight or do some yoga, why are they not going to the gym? What's getting in the way? And typically we go, face it, trace it, erase it, back to childhood. Somebody was traumatized. They were told they were, little piece of crap, whatever. And then they're still functioning with this cognitive distortion. And that's part of the work we do in therapy, is tracing it back and saying, nay, that's not true. We got to turn that one around, and then we turn it around.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the other things that I see in my own practice is just people have a fear of the task itself. They're afraid that they don't know how to do it. They are afraid that if they do it, it won't be done to their own standards. So maybe some internalized imperfectionism, maybe what's getting in the way of them completing a task. So that's kind of one other cause that I see in my practice.
Yeah, not having the skills, and I like to say that in overcoming procrastination, in my own life, it's not willpower, it's skill power. So I don't really believe in willpower anymore. It's not sustainable. I'm going to do, 3 hours of this twice a week and get that done. Nope. It has to come from another way. And for me, habits and skills and learning skills to even the Pomodoro effect, setting a timer for 20 minutes. And so everyone the oscillation points are very interesting. Some people oscillate with a 15 to 20 minute unit of work. Let's say working on taxes or decluttering or something. And then some people can do a 2-hour segment. And it's not better or worse. So you set a timer for 20 minutes to work on something that you need to do, but you're putting it off. And if you do baby chunks, let's talk about chunking. Well, are we getting into tips now? Maybe we should. Okay. Anyway, the point is, there's a way of dealing with the anxiety of it, not knowing how to do something, but breaking it into small, tiny bits and then learning and then gaining mastery that way.
Yeah. So again, you're talking about a skill, which we'll definitely talk about more in greater detail. And I think you're really highlighting that when you don't have a skill like the ability to chunk, not having a problem-solving skill like that can be what contributes to procrastination.
Yeah, now the question is, shouldn't this stuff be taught in school? It makes me angry that people find these things out in therapy or if they see a life coach. This is like basic life skills. Yeah. Learning how to chunk time, learning how to do small, micro levels, baby steps to get where you want to go.
Right. Well, I think to your earlier point, which I think is an important one, if we think about this from a social learning perspective, most of us think about how to prioritize our time based on the people that raised us. We look to see how they scheduled themselves, how they managed their time. We see what tasks they put off. We see what tasks they were very diligent about doing. So I do think that certainly one of the contributing factors to procrastination is, did you grow up in an environment where procrastination was something that you saw people do as a way to perhaps cope?
That's an excellent point. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's imprinted, and they got the download from their parents on how to function, and that's not helping them because they learned how to put stuff off.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And, I think as I think about
modeling.
Yeah, exactly. So that's certainly one of the things that I think about as well. I also think about when I'm thinking about other contributing factors to procrastination, I'm always interested in what the relationship is between the person and the task. So if you imagine that you have a relationship with every task that you either do or don't do, I'm always curious about their relationship to a task. So for instance, what's your relationship to doing the laundry? What's your relationship to paying your taxes? What's your relationship to working out? What is your relationship to doing the lawn care? What is the relationship to grocery shopping?
Excellent.
Right?
Excellent.
So I always think that's a really interesting question. So when you think about your relationship with tasks or the relationships your clients have with tasks that they procrastinate, how would you describe the relationships that you often see between people and their tasks?
It's so interesting how everything's connected. Before my sister got sick, I wouldn't have said this, but like now, after my sister and my husband's illnesses, I feel like I look at things through a different lens. So like, for instance, I don't do the laundry. I don't have to do laundry. And I teach this to my people. I get to do the laundry. My legs work, and I can lift a basket and bring it to the laundry room. I don't have to do yard work. I get to do yard work, and framing it as an opportunity and a blessing that I have the ability to stand up and move. I'm not wheelchair ridden. I don't have neuropathy in my legs, And I tell people when they say like, oh, I have to go to the gym, or I have to, when you say I have to do something, it's like really doing this. Oh, poor me, poor me. And it's a victim-y thing. It's feeling a victim. Oh, poor me, I got to pay my taxes. But the truth is, it's an opportunity. And when we can help people learn that it's an opportunity, reframing it is better.
Yeah.
Reframing. And why are they complaining about something like doing laundry, or people say I hate to do laundry. It's very interesting what that relationship is. Don't they like clean clothes? Don't they want to have clean clothes? But there's something else going on.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think one of the reasons why I like to ask people the question about the relationship they have between tasks that they're doing and not doing is from my own lived experience. When I think about procrastination, one of the things, and I said this to you in our pre-show meeting, I actually don't ever procrastinate. And the reason why is I have kind of emotionally reasoned that procrastination is the emotional equivalent of death for me.
Yes, I love that.
And part of where that comes from is when I was an older adolescent, when I was 19, I was diagnosed for the third time with Hodgkin's lymphoma and lived in a hospital for 6 months.
Wow.
And for me, doing tasks like gave me structure to my day. It gave me a purpose and a reason to fight like hell to survive. So for me, I have always associated psychologically procrastination. If I stop doing things, if I don't do what I say I'm going to do, then to me it feels like a death.
That is so helpful. It's very profound, and actually, it's true. Part of you is dying. Emotionally, it's an emotion. Yeah, it's a little death. It's like le petit mal.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, I think that's one of the reasons why. And for me, I actually have to be really, really mindful of being impatient with people who do procrastinate, because I have to remember that not everybody has had the lived experience that I have had.
Right.
And not everybody has the same psychological relationship with procrastination that I do. And so I've part of my own ongoing work as it relates to this topic and the people in my life is that when people don't follow through on things in the time frame that I would like them to, I have to remind myself that that's my rule. That's my expectation. And that it's wrong for me to project that onto other people. That it's fine for me if that's the rule that I want to have for myself. I need to be aware that that's a rule for myself and not for the other people in my life. So that's my complicated relationship with procrastination.
No, I think it's very helpful. I like pithy things like this is going to cause my death. I mean, it's a very interesting way to look at it. It's a small death.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is in terms of integrity, when teaching DBT, we have a section on values and priorities.
Yeah,
and
which I think is really important.
When you make an agreement with somebody and you say, I'm going to get this to you by a certain day, and then you don't do it, there are consequences. Yeah. Now, maybe there won't be a penalty with a friend, or even if you're being late to lunch. People who are late, they're procrastinating. What are they doing? They're late. I have a very dear friend who's beautiful, brilliant, smart, wonderful person, but she's chronically late.
Yeah.
If I have lunch with her, I know I'm sitting there 15, 20 minutes waiting for her. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Anyway, and I accept this is who she is, how she rolls. Yeah. But meanwhile, it's an integrity breach. And I don't talk about it anymore, but the point is that is not cool. It actually corrodes relationships. And so procrastination, when it affects other people, is something you have to really be aware that it's going to hurt your relationships. Yeah. And if you want to have good relationships, you make agreement, you are your word. And I try to live that way.
Sure.
I am my word to the best of my ability, because that's all we have. I mean, nothing else really matters.
Yeah. You've brought up this word 2 or 3 times now, which I think is super important for us to underscore, which is one of the reasons why we often procrastinate is because our values conflict with whatever value we have assigned to the task, right? So when there's a value conflict between what I need and want or what I care about versus that task, can create a value conflict.
Yes.
And that value conflict can oftentimes lead us to drag our feet, to postpone things, to delay things, or not to do them at all, quite frankly.
Well, so this leads to, it's not in the DSM yet, but someday there may be disease. But beyond procrastination, I call it last-minute-itis. People who feel a need, like, to do extra thing right before they leave the house. They're going to throw in a wash, water the plants, make a phone call, pay a bill. Oh, I'll be on time, and then they're late. Yeah. Or even the last-minute hustle, which actually this is the neuroscience, which I love studying neuroscience. You know what? When they do that, they get an adrenaline rush. Yeah. And they get excited and they feel very alive. Yeah. And I've told more than, especially when I was in New York City, it's less up here. People are adrenaline junkies, and they get so used to the chemical factory of adrenaline really feeds them, and they want to keep going on the adrenaline. That's where they're late, and that's where they're procrastinating because they get off on it. Right. But if you say to them, "What's the payoff of being procrastinating?" They go, "Oh, there's no payoff." Yeah. And I'll say, "Excuse me, I see a payoff here," and then they sit there like befuddled until they realize they get energized.
What do you feel in your body when you do it? Right.
It's a chemical. The internal pharmacy loves it. They're addicted to the adrenaline. Right. Yeah. And
to a large extent, part of what you're beautifully describing is the procrastination cycle of task delay. There is that initial burst of, dopamine, but then there is the guilt, the anxiety, then we can also avoid, then there's the last minute rush, which then gives us that second boost, which gives us temporary relief. And then that whole process just kind of starts all over again, right? Exactly. And, again, I think it's also important for us to understand that cycle in the context of some of the other reasons why our clients come to see us, where they also procrastinate. So our folks who have ADHD, so the inability or the kind of impaired ability to focus or pay attention
Well, that's a whole
to things.
big, we could do a whole, we have
Sure.
to cover that at some point.
Sure.
ADHD is a big topic.
Right. And then our clients who also experience depression, where they don't physically have the energy to do daily living tasks.
That's another, the depression causes the impairment, where we have to reduce the expectations, and just the smallest win, like taking a shower, brushing the teeth, having some food, and maybe mailing one letter. That's a good day. You know, you have to reduce the expectations. So we have a minute to go. Oh, I love talking to you.
Oh, I love talking to you too.
So we have much more, folks. So stay tuned. We're going to be coming back with part 2 is always the nitty gritty and the tips, techniques, methods, what we can do to help you move through your procrastination.
Any kind of last thoughts that you have about how people should understand their procrastination?
Well, I want to say, again, I come from wanting people to have compassion for themselves. And just remember, I didn't make this up, but it's out there. Progress, not perfection, darlings. You need to allow yourself to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. This is the zigzag program of personal growth. You know, no one's going to be perfectly not procrastinating the rest of their life after hearing this, that's for sure. But giving compassion is the beginning of relaxing and then getting stuff done. You know, when you're tensed up, you can't get stuff done. So that's it. Progress, not perfection.
And I guess part of what I would also say too, the thing that I really want to reinforce is think about what your relationship is between you and your tasks. Where did you learn that relationship? And do you still want to be in that relationship with your tasks? If you do, acknowledge that and embrace that. And if you'd like to change it, then it's time to start really questioning the relationship and the payoffs that you may or may not be getting from it.
Wonderfully put. Thank you so much.
You too.
All right, folks, this is Lisa Wessan, and
I'm Heath Hightower. And
we are so grateful. Thank you for the honor of your time. And we will continue this journey in the next episode. Good health is wealth. Go for it.
Take good care, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Process Recordings is produced by Lisa Wessan and Heath Hightower, with technical support from Chelmsford TeleMedia, the community media center of Chelmsford, Massachusetts.